All right, good morning, everybody. We talked about this yesterday, so you're going to be watching the notes on the screen. We can talk in person on Monday if you have any questions about the endocrine system, but for today, this is the job. So we are going to describe the endocrine system. So you should be able to tell me what are some of the different parts, and then kind of what those different parts do. And it says then identify hormones and their function in the endocrine system. So specifically, we'll talk about these chemical messengers, hormones, and what their jobs are. So pretty straightforward. This will actually fill in some gaps based on things that we've talked about already. I think give us the other part of the picture. I'm going to suggest that you pause me and go into the notes and watch this video first, because it'll be a good kind of quick overview. And then when we go through these things, it'll be some repetition that'll be useful. So pause me, go into that, and then come back to me when you're done. All right, so hopefully you watch that and you're back. There are two systems for sending information to and from the brain. We've been talking about your nervous system, and we've been talking about the brain. The other system is called the endocrine system. So the endocrine system sends chemical messages. These chemical substances are called hormones, and they carry these messages through the body in our blood. So hormones travel through the blood, and this is how the endocrine system sends information throughout your body. Nice thing about video notes is you can pause me if I'm going too fast, right? You're in control of what you want to listen to. You can rewind me if you need to hear it again as well. So I'm going to just keep running through this. Hormones affect the growth of the body. They affect our metabolic processes, and they also can help us in stressful situations and influence our mood. So they affect the growth of the body through our bones and muscles. And part of what hormones are doing are sending signals as far as, what needs to happen for your body to grow. How much energy you have, that's your metabolic processes. So these hormones also can affect that. You've heard about your metabolism. When people refer to that, they're talking about metabolic processes, right? And that's how much energy you have. So a person with a high metabolism is somebody that's always going. Somebody with a low metabolism or a slower metabolism, they're not quite as energetic or active. All of the differences, the physical differences between males and females are caused by one of these chemical messengers, hormones, and that is testosterone. So we'll get into, where and why that is a big part of the difference between males and females as we get further into the notes today. Hormones are also secreted during stressful situations. This is part of that fight or flight response. When we talk about the sympathetic system kicking into action, stress prompts the secretion of certain hormones. We'll talk about those. And I said that hormones can act in the brain to directly influence moods and drives. So big picture, these are kind of the things that are happening. We're going to go into part by part of the endocrine system and see kind of how all of these things are happening. So if you want to just a quick scan of the entire body, these are all the different organs that are and glands that are influenced by your endocrine system, part of the endocrine system, and these hormones. I wouldn't expect you to know every single thing on here, but I do think this is a good starting point so that you can kind of see that the endocrine system is vast and there's lots of different parts. When we connect the dots on all of these things and how they communicate important messages, then I think this starts to make more sense as a whole system. So we will identify a handful of these pieces, but notice it's like everything from, parts of your brain. We have the hypothalamus, and then we'll talk about the pituitary gland and the pineal gland, all the way to different organs in your body and, the different hormones that they are releasing to do different kinds of jobs. So it's complex. The first of our pieces of the endocrine system we'll talk about is the pituitary gland. This is the center of control of the endocrine system. Um, so the pituitary secretes a large number of hormones. It's called the master gland because what it is doing is basically then controlling the output of hormones by the other glands in the endocrine system. So the hypothalamus in your brain, we've talked about this, monitors the amount of hormones and sends messages to correct imbalance. The pituitary then is secreting hormones and then kicking different parts of the system on and off. So here is your pituitary right here. It's this little nubbin that's right below the hypothalamus, and it makes sense that those two are kind of working together. So this, like I said, this starts to connect some dots when we see how these systems are functioning and working off of each other. Second one on our list is your thyroid gland. The thyroid gland produces a hormone called thyroxine, which stimulates certain chemical reactions that are important for all tissues of the body. So let's go to the picture and then we'll come back. Your thyroid is in your throat, right above your trachea, okay? And there's two conditions that people can have. If they're getting not enough of this hormone, they can feel lazy and lethargic. They call that hypothyroidism. And if you're getting too much of that hormone, you can be overactive. And people that have, like a misfunctioning thyroid, if they have hyperthyroidism, too much of this hormone in their system, they can lose weight, they can have a hard time sleeping, it can really cause problems. My dad actually had his thyroid was acting up and he had hyperthyroidism, and my mom told me at some point that we were like on the cusp of a divorce because he was driving me crazy. So it was very real, and finally he went to the doctor and it was something that was fairly simply fixed to get his thyroid back on track. But that's a real thing. So I showed you where it is. The next one on our list are the adrenal glands. The word adrenaline. So we're going to use epinephrine and norepinephrine as the different hormones that can be released. That's also known as adrenaline and non-adrenaline. So the adrenal glands become activated when a person is angry or frightened. I don't know if you've ever seen or heard stories about people, like guy is working on his car. He's like underneath the car and the car falls off the jack and his wife like leaps into action and lifts the car off of the man. These crazy stories like that. Like, how could she do that? Well, it's because she's like pumped full of adrenaline, epinephrine, which is kicking all of her muscles into gear, right? So epinephrine causes the heartbeat and breathing to increase. It can heighten emotions like fear and anxiety. It can generate extra energy needed for difficult situations. And it can also secrete corticosteroids. And these are useful because they help muscles develop and cause the liver to release stored sugars. So in the short term, this is useful, and it can actually get you out of problematic situations or help in problematic situations where you need that kind of energy. Remember when we talked about fight or flight and you have to be ready to fight the bear? Like, that's the adrenal glands kicking in, right? Long term, this can be more problematic, and we'll kind of get to that at the end. So your adrenal glands are, you see them kind of at the tops of your kidneys. Okay, and they're part of the endocrine system, and they kick in, when they get those messages from your pituitary that you need the energy response. Next one on our list are the sex glands. You probably remember this from health class. There are two types of sex glands. Males have testes, females have ovaries. The testes produce sperm and a hormone called testosterone. Females have ovaries. The ovaries produce eggs and then hormones estrogen and progesterone. It says low levels of these are found in males as well. Women have more estrogen, males have more testosterone, but both males and females have both of these. So here are the pictures to show you some of the parts related to the reproductive system, and you can see where the ovaries are in the female and the testes are in the male. Again, I think some of this stuff is stuff you've probably seen before. Testosterone specifically is a hormone that's real important. We talked about that at the very beginning. Physical development of males. So essentially, all babies start off as the same. And testosterone will push the baby to grow more male characteristics. A lack of testosterone, and they develop to look like females. So sometimes when there's kind of abnormalities, it's because there's too much or not enough testosterone in the womb for the gender of the child, and that can kind of make things abnormal, right? Or atypical. How about that? Atypical is probably a better word. When we talk about adolescence, testosterone then is important for the growth of muscles and bones and male sex characteristics. So like think about like hairs growing in different parts of young man's body and things like that. That's the testosterone kicking in, right? Young boys don't grow a beard because they don't have enough testosterone. When you hit puberty and you start, getting more of that hormone, then it can bring those things on. Interestingly, when you see old men, what's happening is their testosterone levels start to go down. So, I've been seeing a lot of commercials for, old people my age, and they're talking about how you can't build muscle like you used to, and they want you to take these testosterone supplements, which, kind of funny. When we talk about estrogen and progesterone for females, these are important in the development of female sex characteristics. They also help regulate the reproductive cycle of females. So when we talk about the menstrual cycle and how that kind of functions, part of it is these hormones, keeping that in check. Last thing here we have the difference between hormones and neurotransmitters. So how are they similar? They both work to affect the nervous system. Interestingly, the same chemical can either be a hormone and or a neurotransmitter, depending on where it is and how it's being used. So they're chemical messengers, but it's kind of where are they functioning? So neurotransmitters are released beside the cell and are used to excite or inhibit those cells. Hormones are released into the blood and diffuse throughout the body. So norepinephrine, we talked about as a neurotransmitter, and now we're talking about it as a hormone. The difference is just where and how it's functioning. I'm going to suggest that you watch this as like the last step for today, how stress affects your body. So it connects stress, your nervous system, and the endocrine system. When we talk about when we talk about some of the things related to mindfulness and why mindfulness is a useful strategy, the reason is that if you have prolonged stress and some of those hormones that then are getting put into your system, and how those hormones can wear you down and actually impact things like your immune system. So this will help connect some dots, and it's not very long, but it'll actually be pretty good to watch. So tune into that. And I think that is it for today. We can check in tomorrow, and if you have questions, we can go through anything that you need to know. Otherwise, have a good afternoon, and I will see you in the morning.